Have you ever felt something was watching you, even when you were completely alone? Something ancient, silent, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself? In 1966, a small American town laughed off the first reports of a strange creature with glowing red eyes. But 1 year later, 46 people were dead. And ever since, the sightings haven't stopped. They say what appeared in Point Pleasant, West Virginia wasn't evil. It was a warning. Tonight, we revisit the story that still haunts generations. The story of the Mothman. What you're about to hear is based on true eyewitness testimonies, police reports, and archived articles from 1966 to 1967. Some details have been dramatized for narrative flow, but every event and name you'll hear tonight existed. If you're listening alone, you might want to leave a light on. In the quiet hills of West Virginia, legends travel faster than the wind. But in November 1966, something new started whispering through those hills, something that didn't belong to the realm of myth anymore. People called it the Mothman. But back then, before the headlines and books and horror films, it was just a shadow with wings. And for the people of Point Pleasant, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Sound, old car engine rumbling softly, tires rolling over gravel. A faint radio tune hums and crackles. The story began on a cold night, November 15, 1966. The kind of night when fog sits low, thick and alive, swallowing the roads whole. Roger and Linda Scarberry were driving home with their friends, Steve and Mary Millette. 4 young people, just out for a late ride in Roger's 1957 Chevy, heading down a lonely stretch of road known as Route 62. They'd spent the evening laughing, telling stories, the car filled with warmth and cigarette smoke. But as they approached the TNT area, the abandoned World War II munitions site, something about the air changed. The fog wasn't just thick, it moved. Roger leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. "Do you see that?" he murmured. Linda frowned. "What?" And then there it was. At first, it looked like a man standing on the road. But as the headlights swept across it, it became clear it wasn't a man at all. Tall, too tall, over 7 feet, with broad shoulders, a head that almost touched the low branches. Its wings folded tight glimmered with a leathery sheen. And its eyes, red, not like reflections, but like burning coals. No pupils, just light. Roger slammed the brakes, the tires screaming. The Chevy skidded sideways. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Linda whispered, "Roger, what is that?" The figure just stood there, watching. Then it blinked, once, slowly, and opened its wings. A screech tore through the air, high-pitched, metallic, piercing through bone. It was the sound of something ancient waking up. Roger screamed, "Hold on!" The Chevy roared forward, swerving around the creature. Linda looked back and saw it lift off the ground. It followed them, not running, not flapping, just gliding, effortlessly, silently, skimming the treetops, those red eyes locked on the car. Roger pushed the engine to its limit, 100 miles an hour, but it didn't fall behind. It stayed there, watching, for 7 long miles. Then suddenly, it veered off into the trees, gone. Just like that, the car burst into Point Pleasant minutes later, the 4 of them shaking, pale, nearly in tears. They didn't go home. They went straight to the Mason County Courthouse to report what they'd seen. Deputy Millard Halstead listened quietly as Roger spoke, his hands trembling on the desk. Halstead wrote it all down. And when he asked them, "Were you drinking?" Roger shot back, "I wish we had been." Halstead didn't laugh. He'd known Roger his whole life, and he'd never seen him this scared. Later that night, Halstead drove to the TNT area himself. He didn't find anything, but halfway there, his police radio filled with static, and the engine sputtered like something was interfering with it. He turned around. Something told him to. The next morning, the Point Pleasant Register ran a short story. Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something. It was meant as a curiosity piece, local gossip, but it was enough to ignite a fire. By sundown, the sheriff's office was flooded with calls. One after another, townsfolk reported seeing a tall, winged man around the old munitions plant. A man named Newell Partridge, who lived in nearby Salem, told the press he'd seen the creature outside his house the same night. He said his television had gone black, showing only a pattern of static before he heard his dog Bandit barking outside. When Partridge went out with a flashlight, he saw 2 red eyes shining in the dark. He dropped the light. Bandit ran toward the creature and was never seen again. The next morning, Partridge found strange circular marks in the dirt where the dog had stood. His voice broke when he spoke to reporters. It felt like those eyes went right through me. The town's atmosphere shifted overnight. Farmers refused to work past sundown. Children whispered about a monster in the woods. And hunters began carrying rifles not for deer, but for whatever that thing was. The TNT area wasn't just any forest. It was a decaying industrial graveyard. Concrete bunkers called igloos still dotted the landscape, overgrown with vines. Inside, rusted metal shells from World War II lay buried in silence. Locals said you could still smell gunpowder if you walked deep enough. For decades, it had been a teenager's hangout, a place for couples to park and talk. But after November 15th, it became something else. Night after night, locals swore they saw glowing eyes watching from the tree line. Cars broke down for no reason, and strange humming sounds echoed from underground low, pulsing tones that made your chest vibrate. A few brave souls ventured inside one of the igloos with flashlights. They said they found claw marks on the walls deep, gouged into the concrete. One of them, a young man named Rick Thomas, told police. It felt like something was still in there with us, breathing, watching. He refused to ever go back. By the third week of sightings, fear was spreading faster than the fog. One night, a group of volunteer firemen reported seeing a giant bird with glowing red eyes perched on a tree. When they shined a light on it, it rose silently into the sky and vanished. And then came the gravediggers. 5 men, working late near Clendon Cemetery, claimed they saw a gray figure lift off from the trees and swoop over their heads. It wasn't a man, they said. It was something else entirely. The local radio stations began running updates hourly. People locked their doors early. The TNT road, once empty, was now filled with cars at night, thrill seekers, reporters, and hunters with flashlights and shotguns. But no one could catch it. Each sighting told the same story. The wings, the height, the eyes, and that feeling that something terrible was about to happen. One housewife later said in an interview, "When you saw it, you didn't just feel scared. You felt like it knew something you didn't." A few nights later, Deputy Halstead returned to the TNT area with another officer. They parked near the power plant ruins, scanning the dark with their spotlights. At 11:47 p.m., the beam caught something. 2 glowing red dots staring from a tree line. They froze. No sound, no movement. Then the eyes blinked and rose higher like something standing up straight. The officers radioed for backup, but the signal cut out. Static filled the car. The engine sputtered, and then the eyes were gone. Halstead told the press later, "Whatever it is, it doesn't want to be found." Within 2 weeks, the town's sense of normalcy collapsed. Teachers reported children drawing red-eyed creatures in class. A local priest said his church lights flickered each night at the same time. The local sheriff admitted to reporters, "I've never seen my people this frightened. It's like the whole town's holding its breath." Rumors swirled that the creature was connected to the old TNT chemicals, maybe some mutation caused by radiation or waste buried underground. Others whispered of something darker, a curse from Chief Cornstalk, a Shawnee leader murdered centuries earlier near Point Pleasant. They said his dying words promised vengeance on the land. It didn't matter whether people believed in curses, monsters, or science. The fear was the same. By late November, Point Pleasant became a magnet for the bizarre. Locals began reporting lights in the sky, bright red and orange spheres hovering silently above the TNT area. Strange men in black suits started appearing around town, asking questions, visiting witnesses. One of them reportedly knocked on Roger Scarberry's door, warning him to stop talking to reporters. Another visited the local newspaper office, introducing himself as Mr. Derenberger, though no one could trace the name later. When witnesses described them, they all said the same thing. Pale skin, unblinking eyes, perfectly calm voices. They didn't belong. It was as if whatever had appeared in Point Pleasant wasn't just a creature. It was something connected to something much bigger, something no one could explain. A week before Christmas 1966, an elderly woman called the sheriff's office. She claimed she'd seen the creature perched on her barn roof during a thunderstorm. She said it didn't move, it just watched. When lightning struck nearby, she saw its wings spread, and for a brief moment, she thought she heard it whisper, a voice in the storm. She couldn't understand the words, but she said they sounded like a warning. By December's end, the town had changed. You could feel it, a quiet dread that never left. Sightings slowed down, but the fear didn't. People started avoiding the TNT area entirely. Some families even left town. The sheriff said it best. Whatever that thing was, it made Point Pleasant afraid of its own shadow. And though the creature wasn't seen for weeks, strange events didn't stop. Lights flickered. Radios died. The town of Point Pleasant woke each morning to a little less sunlight and a little more unease. What began as one bizarre sighting by Roger and Linda Scarberry had turned into whispers that crawled through every diner booth, church pew, and classroom. Some people claimed it was an owl, others said it was government testing gone wrong, but no one could look at the black hills around the old TNT area without feeling watched. By the first week of December 1966, the sheriff's office had received nearly a dozen phone calls describing a man-shaped creature with wings. Deputy Halstead stopped laughing at the reports after he found tire tracks scorched into the road where one caller had swerved off in terror. Newspaper reporters arrived from Charleston and Huntington. Cameras flashed, questions flew, and locals stared at their own shoes, not wanting to be quoted. Inside the Point Pleasant Register, journalist Mary Hyre typed headlines that trembled in rhythm with the thunder outside. Couples see bird like man. Creature haunts old TNT plant. Each article fueled the next night's fear. Kids dared each other to drive out there. Hunters took rifles into the woods, and every gust of wind became a wing beat. 2 weeks after the Scarberry sighting, an old gravedigger named Kenneth Duncan stood knee-deep in clay at the Mount Hope Cemetery. Dusk was sliding down the sky, that purple-blue hour when the air smells of iron and rain. He paused, leaned on his shovel, and saw movement above the tree line. A dark silhouette rose silently, wings stretched wider than a car. It glided once slow, deliberate, then perched on a nearby tombstone. Red light flickered where its eyes should have been. Duncan froze. The creature turned its head, like it was choosing him, memorizing him. Then, with a single thrust, it vanished into the fog. He dropped his shovel and ran until his lungs burned. The story spread by morning, and suddenly everyone had a cousin who'd seen it too. Mary Hyre's office became the town's nerve center. She logged every call in a leather notebook. December 2nd, 8:47 p.m. something flew over my car, blacker than night. December 5th, 1:13 a.m. red lights hovering near the TNT domes. December 7th, 9:20 p.m. a figure standing in my yard, tall, watching. She wrote letters to a paranormal researcher named John Keel, urging him to come see for himself. "It's not hysteria," she typed. "It's warning us." By Christmas, Keel was in Point Pleasant, notebook in hand, tape recorder whirring. He interviewed dozens, teachers, police officers, factory workers. All different voices, same terror. "It wanted us to know it's real," one man said. Another whispered, "It's waiting for something." Keel tried logic first. Could the eyes be reflections of headlights on barn owls? Could the wings be misidentified cranes? But the locals shook their heads. An owl doesn't follow a car at 90 miles an hour. Then came stranger explanations. Radiation testing. The TNT plant had stored explosives. Maybe chemicals birthed mutations. The curse of Chief Cornstalk. Some elders recalled the 1777 legend an Indian chief betrayed and killed near Point Pleasant, who cursed the land before dying. UFO connection. Witnesses also reported glowing orbs, buzzing phones, men in black suits asking odd questions. Whatever it was, logic crumbled under the weight of fear. Throughout December 66, the town changed shape. Streetlights felt dimmer. Radios picked up static. Dogs howled through the night. Families moved away quietly. Children whispered about red eyes at their windows. Mary Hyre stopped sleeping. Each night she'd dream of people drowning in a river, their hands reaching up through dark water. She'd wake to her phone ringing, static hissing on the other end. At the diner, Roger Scarberry told Keel when it chased us, it wasn't trying to kill us, it was trying to be seen. Keel leaned forward. Seen, or believed? Outside, lightning split the sky like a cracked mirror. January 1967 brought snow and strangers. Locals swore they saw men in black suits driving new Cadillacs with no license plates. They asked about witnesses, took photos, then vanished. Mary Hyre met one in her office. He was pale, she wrote later. Eyes too big, voice flat. He kept asking if the creature had spoken to anyone. When she tried to ask him questions, he laughed without smiling and walked out. By the time she reached the door, he was gone, no footprints in the snow. Months passed. The Mothman sightings slowed but never stopped. A hunter found feathers the size of his forearm. Teenagers saw a shape circling the water tower at midnight. Drivers swore something swooped across the bridge in the fog. People got used to fear like you get used to an ache in your chest. It never leaves. You just learn to breathe around it. Keel's notebook filled with coordinates, times, and names. The last page of his winter entries read only one line. It's counting down to something. By autumn 1967, Point Pleasant had learned to live with the season's daylight and dread. But 1 week before Christmas, dread began to scream. On December 10th, Mary Hyre dreamt again of people in the water. This time she could hear metal twisting, cables snapping. She woke in tears. Across town, a truck driver radioed in about a giant bird on the bridge cables. Police arrived, found nothing but claw-like scratches in the paint. Keel received a final phone call that night from an anonymous voice. "It's happening soon. You've all been warned." He didn't sleep. None of them did. The town carried on, pretending to forget, but everyone felt it, that thick, electric silence before something breaks. Parents held their kids tighter. Workers glanced at the river every time they crossed the Silver Bridge. And somewhere out there, above the black Ohio water, 2 red lights flickered like coals. Watching, waiting. December in Point Pleasant was cold, but not cruel. Christmas lights shimmered along Main Street. Children pressed their noses to toy store windows, and the Ohio River rolled dark and steady beneath the Silver Bridge. For a moment, life almost felt normal. Almost. But underneath that cheer, something restless moved. Dogs barked at nothing. Radios cut to static at the same minute every evening. And the old TNT domes echoed empty, as if waiting for an audience. On December 10, 1967, 5 days before the disaster, Roger Scarberry told his wife Linda he'd seen those eyes again while driving home. "I didn't stop," he said quietly. "It was on the power lines near the bridge, watching." Mary Hyre was exhausted. Her dreams had become a nightly torture, visions of cars sinking into dark water, people screaming for help that never came. She told John Keel, "It's getting closer, John. I can feel it." Keel, now hundreds of miles away in New York, felt the same unease. His phone calls to Point Pleasant kept failing. His letters returned unopened. "Something's wrong," he wrote in his journal. "The air feels heavy, charged, like it's waiting to snap." It was a Friday. Cold, clear skies. A perfect day for Christmas shopping. By 4:45 p.m., rush hour traffic began to crawl onto the Silver Bridge, 600 feet of steel suspended above the black current of the Ohio River. Cars idled bumper to bumper, carrying shoppers, families, truckers on delivery runs. Among them was a young mother, Marjorie Wetzel, with her 2 kids in the back seat, a truck driver named Steve Allen carrying Christmas decorations, and a factory worker named Danny Robertson, humming along to a song on the radio. Somewhere near the middle of the bridge, an older man named Otho Sykes glanced up at the sky. He swore later he saw 2 red lights moving between the clouds, hovering, then diving out of sight. He blinked, thought he imagined it. He didn't mention it to anyone. At 5:04 p.m., as the streetlights flickered on, a sound like a thunderclap tore through the air. The Silver Bridge groaned, a deep, twisting roar of steel giving way. One of the suspension eye bars, a critical link forged back in 1928, fractured. The weight of rush hour snapped the next, then the next. In less than 20 seconds, the entire bridge folded like paper and plunged into the freezing river below. Cars vanished into black water. Tires screamed. Glass exploded. People who survived the fall were trapped in twisted metal, pulled under by the current. From the riverbank, witnesses watched helplessly as headlights sank one by one beneath the surface, each light snuffed out like a dying star. 46 people were gone. Sirens tore through the town. Police, firemen, divers, and volunteers rushed to the riverbanks. Searchlights swept the icy water. Pieces of the bridge drifted like dead leviathans. Families screamed names into the dark. Mary Hyre stood on the shore, notebook clutched tight. "It happened," she whispered, voice trembling. "It warned us." One diver later said he saw something under the wreckage, 2 glowing red lights moving slowly through the murk, like eyes watching from beneath the water. He refused to dive again. The morning after, news crews arrived. Headlines screamed, "Tragedy in Point Pleasant Bridge collapses, 46 feared dead." Investigators found the cause, a single, tiny fracture in the bridge's steel joint rusted, invisible until it failed. A tragic engineering flaw, they said, a coincidence of physics and fate. But for the people of Point Pleasant, it wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. Every dream, every sighting, every whisper, they all pointed here. To this day, survivors swear that the Mothman appeared above the bridge moments before it fell, as if watching. Or warning. After the collapse, the sightings stopped. Completely. No red eyes, no wings, no screams in the night. The hills grew quiet again, as if something had finally finished its work and moved on. Mary Heyer continued to write, but her health declined. In 1970, she died suddenly at her desk, pen still in hand. Locals said she was called home by the same force that haunted her dreams. John Keel published his notes as the Mothman Prophecies. He never returned to Point Pleasant. "That town is a scar," he wrote, "and scars remember." The Silver Bridge was rebuilt in 1969, stronger, safer, gleaming in the sun. They called it the Silver Memorial Bridge. But some nights, when fog rolls low and the water looks black, fishermen still report seeing something vast gliding just above the surface. In 2016, during the bridge's 50th anniversary memorial, a tourist from Cincinnati snapped a photo of a large winged shape near the tree line. Experts called it a heron. Locals didn't even argue. They'd seen it before. By 2020, new sightings poured in Illinois, Chicago, Kentucky. Always the same: red eyes, black wings, silent flight. It no longer belonged to one town. It belonged to anyone who believed that tragedy leaves footprints. February 2025, a trucker on Route 35 called into the local radio station. His voice shook. "Something's flying over the bridge. Big, black. It's keeping pace with me." The host laughed. "Probably an owl." But before the caller could respond, the line went dead. The station logged the time 11:46 p.m., the same hour the Silver Bridge collapsed 58 years ago. Coincidence? Maybe. But Point Pleasant doesn't believe in coincidence anymore. Today, the town celebrates the Mothman Festival every September. Costumes, statues, merchandise. A way to turn fear into folklore. Yet beneath the laughter, people still lower their voices when they speak of the real thing. A mechanic once said he saw eyes staring from the reflection of his wrench. A ranger swears he heard wing beats in the trees near the river. And every anniversary of the bridge collapse, someone leaves a single red feather on the memorial plaque. Some say the Mothman is a demon. Others call it an angel. Some think it's neither, just a mirror showing us our own fear before it's too late. Maybe it tried to save them. Maybe it came to collect. But either way, the warning was given. And maybe, even now, somewhere in the Black Hills of West Virginia, something ancient spreads its wings again, waiting for the next tremor, the next collapse, the next town that needs to remember what fear really means. If you ever find yourself driving alone through Point Pleasant on a foggy night, and you see two red lights hovering above the trees, don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep driving. Based on true eyewitness accounts and historical records, 1966-67, Point Pleasant, WW. Sources: the Point Pleasant Register Archives, John A. Keel's The Mothman Prophecies, survivor interviews, local oral histories. Share if this story gave you chills. Subscribe for more true horror stories.